You're listening to Ecosysteming, the podcast redefining economic development through the lens of equitable entrepreneurship. Join NCIdea as we engage with entrepreneurs and experts who are challenging the status quo and driving lasting change.
Hello, and welcome to the Ecosysteming podcast. I'm your host, Tom Rue, and today I have a very special privilege. Candidly, I've been so looking forward to today's podcast because I am joined by Michelle Bolas, who is the president and CEO of NCInnovation. Michelle, thank you for joining us in studio.
Thank you for having me. It is wonderful to be here, Tom, and to see the epicenter of where this work is happening for the fantastic NCIdea team. I love it.
Epicenter. Oh, that's a big word for me, but I appreciate you thinking that I know what that means. All kidding aside, you come to this role, you've been here since the beginning, if memory serves, because I was introduced to the organization at the very earliest stage, like when it was still, hadn't even been funded yet through the
beginning of the beginning.
The beginning of the beginning.
Yeah.
So that's been, 4 years now?
We're still in the beginning. I joined in January of 23.
Okay.
And
3 years.
Yeah, 3 years.
But you're no stranger to the space. To be clear, you weren't hired by accident. I mean, you have an impressive career in university innovation, spans decades. You were the chief innovation officer at UNC Chapel Hill and the executive director of Innovate Carolina.
Yes.
So you have been absolutely committed to understanding and realizing the impact of university innovation for, like I said, a couple decades now, if not longer.
Yes. Yeah. And actually, prior to my time at Chapel Hill, I had the privilege of working at NC State to help found and advance the work of the Institute for Emerging Issues. So, and really where that ties in to this work that I am doing today is this commitment to taking assets that are knowledge assets that are buried in our systems of higher education, our research institutions, and getting them out to public good, right? Getting them out where they can make a difference in the world, whether they're cures for rare diseases or the next technology that is, going to transform the way that we live and work and do business. Those assets are generated on a daily basis within our institutions of higher education. So how do we get the knowledge out to where it's useful for people? And to do that in a state like North Carolina is just an incredible privilege.
I want to double click on something there.
Yeah.
You used the word asset a couple of times, and I don't think that is a generally understood. We take it for granted because this is the water we swim in, right?
Sure.
But why don't we just take 1 second so that you can explain to the viewer that it truly is an asset of the state because of how the IP is generated, the intellectual property, the innovation.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is an area that I'm really passionate about. Our public university system in North Carolina is just a profound benefit to the state and the citizens. We have made significant investments over many, many years in the capital infrastructure, the quality of the people that we hire. We attract researchers from all across the country who are working in all different areas of research and intellectual exploration, right? We are one of the top finest systems of research and higher education in the country. And it is a public good created by and on behalf of and should generate benefit back to the citizens of North Carolina at a very high rate of volume and predictability, right? We should be seeing the results of the fruits of our investment in this incredible research platform in a more regular way. So that belief is actually fundamental to the design of what NC Innovation is and is bringing out in the innovation space.
Yeah, I appreciate that because again, I think that's one of those concepts that might fly over the heads of people that it's an asset that's been funded by tax dollars, right?
Hmm.
The research,
Yeah,
and we should expect
we should
a
expect
return
more.
on that asset, just like you would
Absolutely.
out of your
Right,
like 401k savings
right.
or anything else. I think that doesn't get appreciated enough in the public discourse around that. And it was the nice segue to why
Yes.
NC
Why? Right,
Innovation was
right.
created, right? So
Yeah,
why don't we do let me give you the platform for the formal,
sure.
official, hey, NC Innovation was created to do XYZ.
Sure. Well, NC Innovation, just following on that explainer, was created to essentially look at the system of public research institutions in North Carolina as an evergreen technology platform, and to think if we invested in a philanthropic way in the assets that are emerging that have the potential for commercial and societal impact, to get them ready for that next transition. What would that look like? How would we do that? And how would we do that in a way that is regular so that we can, again, start to build some clusters of economic opportunity in ways that attract other uh, corporate and industry partners and are attractive to the venture and entrepreneurial community writ large.
But isn't that a long established practice? I mean, come on, there's professional associations, surrounding that. Like, hasn't academia figured this out? And he says
He
sarcastically,
says
leading the witness.
sarcastically, right?
Spoiler alert, obviously, it's
Yeah,
for those of you who are maybe tuning in and follow this, right? If you've been tracking investment in innovation and commercialization, you understand it's been really following the law of diminishing returns.
yeah,
So as more money continues to flow into it, we're getting less and less out of it. And I don't know that that should be a surprise considering the practices were born in 1980 with the passage of the Bayh-Dole Act.
right, right.
And like technology-based economic development, spoiler alert, was a lot different in
Yeah,
the 80s and 90s and leading up to the dot-com era. So all of this is just to be a blatant setup for you to explain why this
sure.
model is or how this model is different. What is NC Innovation doing that's different than everybody else out there?
NC Innovation is uh, evaluating that period of time and of development in a technology's life between proof of concept and really strong investment cycle, right? And
Right.
that investment cycle could also take the form of a very fruitful industry license or corporate partnership of some type, but a really strong entry into the commercial market. And that time has two main qualities. That time generally requires quite a bit of technical and scientific work to take this proof of concept technology and de-risk and test and orient it toward an adoption point from an industry or market standpoint,
How's
right?
that done? How is that?
So that is often, that is where you see startup companies formed to be the vehicle for doing that de-risking and development work. You'll hear a lot of talk about getting friends and family money, angel investors. Sometimes, there are multiple pathways to trying to get some combination of philanthropic or very, very early stage risk capital into that space,
Preferably
right?
non-dilutive.
Preferably non-dilutive, but unfortunately, with in this world that we live in, there's often no choice for a researcher who has an asset that they believe has potential, but to move it into a nascent startup.
Right.
And you and I know that those are not strong startups. Those
No.
are paper vehicles for trying to hold on to the opportunity for further development, right? And that, frankly, is where most university based technologies die,
And
just for lack of a specific source.
can I ask you to maybe put on your prior hats? And I've got friends across the country that are involved in this space as
Yeah.
well, and I hear their horror stories or their challenges. So this might be an unfair question, and I apologize for ad-libbing this here, but why do you think universities are so risk averse? Like, why do you think tech transfer offices don't quite understand how to do this the right way, which I would argue is the NC innovation way? Like, I mean, as proud as we are to support NC innovation, because I do think it is a model
Yeah.
that should be absolutely franchised across the country. Let me look square into the camera and say that, this will be emulated.
We
This is
completely agree. Yes.
absolutely,
Yeah.
but it always makes me wonder, okay, so then why can't other states, other universities,
Yeah.
as big as the big three we
Sure.
have, right? What is it cultural? Is it legislative? Like, so that it's contractual?
Well, you mentioned Bayh-Dole, and I think, as you said, it was a start. Unfortunately, in a lot of ways, it was also a finish in
Mm,
terms of federal involvement in supporting this kind of work, and it was an unfunded mandate, right? So that imperative for universities to uh, do everything that they can with their research to get it to a commercial or a societal output doesn't come with any particular funding mechanism or other set of incentives that would motivate that kind of behavior. So it really is up to every university to find their own pathway for funding that activity and
right.
supporting that activity. And that, frankly, is just in competition with a lot of other priorities. The larger, I would posit, the larger the university gets, the more risk adverse it gets in those
Isn't
areas.
that crazy?
And it it just is a very challenging set of activities for any one institution to take on in a regular way, right?
Yep.
Because it just involves so many different variables within an environment that is set up to do really different things, right? We're not incentivized for it inside our universities. We're not rewarded for it. Faculty, by and large, that's starting to change. We're starting to see a lot more attention to tenure and promotion standards that take into account entrepreneurial activity.
Could you imagine?
Can you imagine? But by and large, the prevailing systems do not award entrepreneurial activity of any kind, and
Yeah.
so you often, are most um, risk inclined and uh, bursting with new ideas faculty and our junior faculty are going to wait until they are secured in their tenure pathway to do this kind of work. And so we're really at odds with ourselves from within the system.
No, I get that. That makes sense. And I will say it's one of the many reasons I just love being in your presence, because you drop these knowledge bombs that are just like, they just stumble out of your mouth. And I think, oh, that's profound. Like Bayh-Dole, that you're right. That wasn't a mandate. It was a permission slip, basically.
Yeah,
Right. So it
suggestion.
made it okay, right, that you
Yeah,
could, go ahead and take a carried interest in an IP coming out. But it's not like there was a huge bucket of money that got attached to that. It was
right,
left to the schools to figure out.
right.
And then the other parallel of what you just said, I think about how it applies to just economic development more
Yeah,
broadly, right? It seems that we are, and we're not alone in North Carolina, all the states are. This is a race to the bottom, but in traditional economic development, the smokestack chasing, right? we will throw money at trying to encourage a big company, right, to move here. And it's just kind of like the thing we do,
Yes.
and everybody does it, despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary that it's diminishing returns
Yeah.
and the output, the economic impact of supporting nascent firms,
Yeah.
considering it's nascent firms that create all net new jobs in this
Exactly.
country.
Yes.
But somehow the logic around that eludes the people in power that control the strings of these resources. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I do sense, and this is actually a good transition. I
Yeah.
do sense that maybe times are shifting because you and I recently participated in these high level
We did.
conversations around advancing innovation and entrepreneurship. Um, I guess what I'd ask, what was your take
Yeah.
on this dialogue, and what do you have hopes that it's going to go somewhere?
When I talk about what NC Innovation means for North Carolina, not necessarily what we are in terms of an organization, but what we are as a signal that North Carolina is taking innovation very seriously as a critical component of our overall economic future, right? I think a $500 million endowment and the mandate from the General Assembly, the belief that the General Assembly has put in this organization and in what we're doing around moving innovation from the sidelines into the center of the conversation of what it takes for North Carolina to be competitive. I think things are shifting. I think that is an enormous shift. It's also very tenuous, right? It's going to take a lot of people getting on board with that value proposition for it to stay true. And you and I know it is hard to build. It is very easy to break things.
Oh, yeah.
It's really hard to build big things. It takes a lot of people believing for a lot of different reasons. We don't all have to have the same agenda. But in general, if we believe that North Carolina has more to offer than what's been put on the table in terms of our economy, and that it can be more distributed across our state, uh, which has all of these great geographic assets as well as intellectual and knowledge and people assets,
Right.
um, then it's going to take staying in the game for a while to make that real. And, I think, so I think the conversations we're having are really good signals, but they need to go somewhere, right? We need to see people really moving toward what they can bring
Right.
to the table in this way,
Come
right?
join us on the
Come
same
join
end
us
of
in
the
the
rope
same, right?
as opposed to the other end of the
Right,
rope. Right.
right. And I think one of the things that um, we've talked a lot about, because both of our organizations are really structured to work in, support, and highlight. I don't say lift up because they don't need lifting up, but they do need uh, daylight. The regional capabilities that we have in smaller communities outside of RTP, right? So
Absolutely.
NC Innovation is a regional play, and we are pushing against the tide in that way, right? There's a embedded body of interest that says we should just double down on RTP.
Right.
And, I appreciate that. I appreciate what the triangle means for the state. We're in Durham. This is an incredible center
Right.
of entrepreneurial thinking and doing and activity. But it's not the only activity that's happening. And I fear that if we don't make room for others to also bring their assets to the table and to invest in some of those, it is diminishing returns for what North Carolina can do in this space. And so that regional component is really important. And it's very attractive to the first way of operating that you reference, this big game hunting, right? Large corporations are looking not only for talent, but they're looking for centers of innovation activity. So if we lift up our game on the small to medium sized technology businesses, we also will win more on the large
Attraction.
attracting those large corporate
Yeah.
headquarters, attracting the interest of those emerging centers.
Yeah. Again, one of the many, many, many things we are in very staunch agreement on, the days of Bell Labs and,
Yeah,
Xerox Park, um, they're, they're gone.
yeah.
Innovation, R&D for the Fortune 500, that's done via acquisition.
Yes, it is.
So my
Absolutely.
argument has
Right.
been to the forces that lead, the attraction efforts here is
Yeah.
instead of, saying, hey, we're the best state in the nation just to expand because we have like low unionized labor. We have relaxed environmental laws. We have lower than
Lots of
national average
land.
incomes. Like these are not things we should be bragging about, right? I would rather go
Yeah.
out there and say,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
we are so multi tracked. We have so many
Absolutely. Right.
verticals, right? What whatever you're going to do, big company, for your next product iteration, there's probably somebody in North Carolina in a garage working on that solution right now.
Yes.
And when the
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
comes, if you come when the time comes and you engage with the ecosystem as a trusted partner and you earn your trust, we all have to earn
Yeah.
trust.
Yeah.
But once that happens, right, you're going to get the benefit of this thing of ours, what we affectionately refer to as
Yes.
our statewide
Yeah.
ecosystem.
Yeah.
And so if you'll indulge me for a second talking about this thing of
Yeah.
ours, I'll say this
Please.
effort of ours.
Yeah.
Um, I know I'm just shamelessly
Oh,
leading the
please
witness
do
here
it.
when I say this, but I think that, you feel we have a
Yeah.
good, strong partnership between the two
Absolutely.
organizations.
Yes.
Can I shamelessly ask you why you like our association
Well,
and
we
what NC
we
Idea
came to
brings?
you, so I think that we've been the shameless um, party in that relationship. But one thing that's been really important to me in this role from the beginning has been to be additive to what those who have already been putting in all of the sweat equity in this space are bringing, and to leverage those assets, those you'll hear me use that word a lot, but those strengths that
Yep.
already exist. And so your door was the first that we knocked on. And I can't tell you how meaningful it was, it is, it remains, that it was unequivocal. Yes, we're in. Um, that kind of collaborative spirit, I think, is really special in North Carolina, but it's also special about your leadership and the way that this organization. No, you asked for the shameless plug, so
Well,
I'm
I meant for
giving
the
it.
organization. I
I'm
appreciate
giving
the
it to
kind
you.
words, but
But the organization and the leadership behind the organization, we talked a little bit about this earlier off camera. When you have leadership that's willing to take risks
yeah.
and to understand what it takes to do big things over long periods of time, you can come to the table in a fearless way.
Yep.
And that's what we've done here. And so, but specifically, what did we see that we needed? You had something that we needed, and that is a very high value statewide network of experienced entrepreneurs, people who have done this
Operators.
again and again and again, and who are always willing to roll up their sleeves the next time. And you cultivate that and you support it, and people who operate in that way are attracted to it. And so we know that you are a one-stop shop for the kind of leadership that we need. The reason that that's so critical for our model is I think we're taking a bit of a disruptive approach to faculty entrepreneurship in particular. There have been many programs over many years that have supported uh, the entrepreneurial development of the entrepreneurial mindset and skill set. with faculty. You come from Kaufman, you know this better than most. There's all sorts of literature around that. There are programs that do that. That is not where NCI is starting. We are looking at the technology
Right.
and what is the best vehicle to get that technology into use. The faculty, obviously, the inventor is at the table and has to
Right.
be at the table. But our approach is to support them right away with wraparound support for everything they need that they don't frankly have the time to learn and may or may not be inclined. If they are, fantastic. Our approach allows for that. And if they aren't, they have this now network of support that we are plugging into each and every project that we fund in a very intentional way. We are funding it, and you are helping us do that, right?
I appreciate that. I'll not surprisingly, I'll just agree with you. For example, we have grant programs, seed and micro, non-dilutive. That's
Yeah.
sweet, 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 free money.
Yes.
And in the 10 years I've been here, I can tell you it was frustrating. And this goes well before the creation of NCInnovation.
Yeah.
We get these grant applications from these PI teams at the biggies and, some of the regional schools. And you look at it and you go, that's got that, the innovation is very sexy in a
Mm-hmm.
like serving
Mm-hmm.
humanity sort of way,
Yeah.
right? Making life better for everybody. But the business acumen,
Sure.
I mean, I don't want to dunk on anybody, but like it was so lacking, it was almost comical, right? And they don't understand. To
It's not
their
their
to
job.
their
Yeah,
defense,
absolutely. Right.
their job is to
Right.
have the big ideas, but like I think for so long in higher ed and academia and in tech transfer more broadly, the celebratory moment, the thing that was like, yes, was like the issuance of a patent.
Right.
And I remember I was at UT Arlington, helping a friend down there that's trying to grapple with, tech transfer. And he wanted me to be there for their summit in particular.
Yeah.
And the culmination of the summit was they brought out, I think it was about a dozen faculty who had patents issued that year. And this was the like, oh, hey, look at this. And woof, you
Yeah.
really accomplished something. It isn't that great. And I sat back and I must have really not had my poker face on.
Yeah.
I must have looked like, a dog hearing something funny because he was like, what's up with that? I go, I don't understand this. Why are you like the patent issuance? It's an accomplishment. I don't mean to take anything away from that, but that's just the starter's pistol
Right.
for a marathon that still has to be run,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like now the work begins
Yeah.
because what's the use of the patent if it never serves humanity?
That IP has to be carefully developed and into a technology and a product, right?
Yep.
And that the patents are very important.
They are, no doubt.
The intellectual property portfolios of our institutions are very high value, but there are also high value libraries that often sit like libraries do, like books on a shelf,
Oh, yeah.
right? And so I think that the question is what do they represent in terms of commercial opportunity and impact opportunity, and that's why you need organizations like ours to take the what is the thing and make it into what is what is the outcome. Universities do this and they have done it, and we've seen many examples of success from within universities. But what they're not set up to do is to do it in a repeatable and predictable way
Right.
that leads to, kind of a continuing set of outcomes.
Predictable outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
No, I get
and,
that.
And so, the way that I think about, kind of the development of that IP portfolio is, and the investor community is, we've seen the investor community kind of circle around universities for a long time now. And in my head, I imagine that as kind of like a giant catcher's mitt, right? Just waiting for that that one stray ball to come and
Right.
grab it and run. And sometimes they get a little bit closer and, they're grabbing more balls, but they're dropping a lot of them
Oh,
because they're just so nascent. They're
right.
just so underdeveloped. Um, and so I think what we're trying to do is say, what if we really teed up a portfolio that was of much higher value because it's been de-risked, it's been developed towards specific industry and market white space and need, and it's been evaluated for adoptability, by the market, by industry, all in a very short period of time. So it's hot, right? And we can do that across many different sectors because our universities are spinning out research across many different sectors. We're obviously strong in North Carolina in biotech. About 50% of what we see coming in is somewhere related to biotech, but we have emerging strengths in a lot of other areas, and we should explore those.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, frankly, just as a data point on that, North Carolina not only has an NSF engine,
Yes.
we were awarded
Yeah.
2.
2. Yeah.
And I believe the textile engine, which I happen to have the privilege of
Yes.
serving as the board chair, is the only one that was targeted in a rural community.
Yes.
Right. And when you think about as an industry, revitalization of an industry, textile in particular, has so much application in rural communities, more so than others. And I think that's reflected. I know you're collaborating in Charlotte on yet
Yes.
a third potential
Potentially a third. It's very
engine.
exciting.
And so,
Yeah.
and again, it speaks to what you just said about the diversity. I want to talk about the kind of the funding. You'd said that, funds are kind of hanging out there with their catcher's mitt out there ready to catch something. We recently made a big move.
You did. You've had a big month.
Yeah. Yeah. Between, bringing over the Riot team.
Would you like to say anything about that?
Well, I would like to say that our relationship gave us the confidence to do that move.
Yeah.
And it just made a lot more sense to bring on these incredible people that were,
Yeah.
that are very tightly integrated in the programming that you offer your PI teams. And they are proven. They've been, one of our longest standing ecosystem
Yes.
partners for a decade now. So this wasn't even so much kind of like a marriage of somebody new. This was just like, hey, we kind of been living together. We might as well make it official now, right? And so we did. But so as exciting as that is, that what I was teeing up was another big move, at least for us, again, being relatively small, frankly, a rounding error to like what Kaufman had back in the day when I was there, but still very leveraged was we've now become a Cornerstone LP in what was a triangle specific early stage pre-seed sidecar fund called the Triangle Tweener Fund. But us making a multi-million-dollar, multi-year commitment is allowing the Triangle Tweener Fund to become the North Carolina Tweener Fund.
It's so exciting.
It's exciting for many reasons, not the least of which, and again, that's how we roll.
Yes.
We look at our partners, our super trusted partners, and go, okay, what can we do that creates value for everybody?
Yeah.
Like what we are doing together,
Yeah.
and it's definitely a team sport, is we are proving that 1 + 1 + 1 = 97, right? And doing this
Absolutely.
move with
Yes.
Tweener, we've now got a vehicle. I mean, I guess I'm rambling a little bit to tee up the question. Do you see things like the Tweener Fund as a tool for NCInnovation to continue to support? I know I'm going to be counting the days, and you will be getting obnoxious text messages from me the first time that the NC Tweener Fund funds an NCInnovation
Absolutely.
company.
Absolutely.
And you and I should
Yes.
I don't know if we'll do a drinking game when that happens, but like that should be a goal. But do you think it could be something that even NCInnovation might want to join in on and be part of? And can we show a trend for other big institutions to say, hey, I mean, if you have to think of it as altruistic, so be it. Think of it as altruistic, but it's really economic development.
It's really economic development, and I think there's a few things I would love to hit on
Please.
around that. One is I think you also mentioned this partnership that you've entered with Riot, or that and bringing Tom and Rachel into the fold. I think for us, it's been really exciting to see the response of the ecosystem to what NCI is bringing. That wasn't a given. That's not a given. But to see the shaping of new ways to think about programming and using your strengths and your capabilities, Riot's strengths, Riot capabilities, but to adapt those to what NCI needs and the kind of work that we're trying to do to get these technologies further, faster out of
Right.
our universities, has just been an incredible validation point. Adding now the fund component, the ability to start investing in these, from your perspective, says to me that, again, we're on the right track here, because what we need next is for investors to start taking a more serious look at what is going to be coming out of NCI's portfolio projects, right?
Yep.
So we, over a 2-year period, have deployed almost $30 million to date in funding across 38 projects. And those projects are situated statewide, so across 14 of our 17 university system institutions.
Forgive me for interrupting. I want to ask a clarifying question because viewers might be asking this now,
Sure.
hearing you. The funding you put in, the 30-ish
Right.
million, does any of that in your equity interest to the organization?
No. So thank you for clarifying.
No, I just want to I want everybody to have the same context I have because the story gets a lot better.
The story gets a lot better. We are a philanthropic angel investor at a very early stage at a meaningful level. So I really want to focus on this for a minute, because
Please.
when we talk about what does it take to get faculty to do this kind of work and to take on more risk and institutions to do that, well, they're often making a decision. Am I going to go for this $1 million research grant, or am I going to go for this $50,000 entrepreneurial offering that my university is putting in front of me to pursue something that is very high risk, right? That's a tough position to be in, because as we talked about, those technologies are not even close to ready for a startup or the kind of support that would make them viable for one of your competitions, right? So we have to bring a meaningful investment closer to them and to what the technology needs. So our projects are typically somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million in funding over a 2-year time period, very tightly tied to milestones that get that technology industry ready, right? Or investment ready from a early stage investment standpoint. So over any 2-year period of time, we will now be bringing to the North Carolina venture community around 50 technologies that are de-risked, have entrepreneurs in residence who have been working with those technologies for 2 years, have business plans, and have industry-ready roadmaps. We really need the investment community to start paying attention to this, and Tweener Fund is first to the table. So we're super excited about that.
Yeah, and not to put words in your mouth, but I know what I'm excited about it is for the companies we fund, again, it's non-dilutive. So that just comes out of our OpEx budget,
Right.
and then it's in our spend. And the grant period's usually 6-12 months, and we use quaint language like you're part of the family now, and they get wrapped around with our services and programming. And then when we're done, for those that go on to a fundraising stage, it's kind of like dropping your kids off at college, right? And you're kind of like, okay, we hope we raised you well, because and they are looking back as the car is driving away, and they're going like, oh, this is scary. I'm going out to do the fundraise now. It would really be nice if NCIDEA was still here and part of this journey, and we didn't have that vehicle.
Yeah.
And so to me, the virtuousness of the move we made with Tweener, and oh, by the way, I need to make a disclosure. I'm not reading some obnoxious disclosure, but we'll have it. Um, the producer will go ahead and drop it on over my face here while I'm rambling about this, because we do have a carried interest in doing this funding. And it's important to note that this is a way we can stay connected then, and we're now on their cap
Yeah.
table,
Yeah.
and then there can be more return
Right.
when they go off and be wildly successful. It's paying money back into the pipeline, the activities, the networks and
Sure.
partnerships that
Absolutely.
are continuing that churn,
Yeah.
right? And that's how we win in this space. That's what
Yeah.
true economic development looks like. We create these virtuous, these flywheel, whatever cliche you want to use, but like it's good for everybody to keep it going. And so I would say to, some of the critics about the funding model for NC Innovation, and if y'all can use some of that returns to then get on the cap table of the companies that you are birthing, right? There is long-term returns on that. That's capital returning on
Sure.
capital.
Sure.
Think about that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's just
Yeah.
smart. It's the smart thing to do.
And other states have done that
Yep,
to be sure. But I want to be clear that NCI right now is 100% focused on the authorities that we have from North Carolina to do the work that we're doing in a
understood.
non-dilutive way. And I think that I'll be honest, I am relieved that we did not enter the ecosystem with any kind of venture fund associated with NC Innovation. And the reason is that it changes the way that you scout technologies when you start
Abs
from a venture perspective. So for North Carolina, for now, I really believe that NCI wholly investing in a philanthropic way on the public good that is the technology asset. And and why are we doing that on the university side? We're doing that so that any value that is created around that technology accrues back to a vehicle that belongs to the state of North Carolina, our public universities, right?
Yep,
The university accrues that value and the people own that. So it is a public good. And I think that is absolutely the right space for us. Where we enter the conversation is making sure that we are showing that to the private sector in a way that is continually engaging uh, the opportunities for those technologies to move forward. And that is where we will play in this space until we need a different solution around how to fund the work of NC Innovation. And then we'll talk about, what some of those models look like. But for right now, I think that we are in exactly the right space for bringing higher risk, maybe lower initial ROI technologies out of the universities and into those communities because we're not just out here looking for a unicorn.
yeah. No, it's one of the, again, and sounding like a broken record, it's another thing where we are aligned. In our model, I've said from day one, if 80% or more of the companies we fund at the earliest of
Mm-hmm.
stage, we are overwhelmingly majority of the funding that we do, we're first external funding going into these
Yeah.
organizations. We are
Yeah.
very, very early and risk tolerant. And if 80% or more of the companies we fund go off and are wildly successful, we're not taking enough risk.
Yeah.
That might sound counterintuitive, and I'm not rooting for a higher failure rate. I'm
Yeah.
just saying we don't exist to bet on sure things. And to your point earlier, if you were born with this kind of private equity lens,
Yeah.
it absolutely skews,
Sure.
the selection process. Candidly, I would say it doesn't even qualify as charitable if it's just coming out of the gate
Mm-hmm.
looking to bet on
Right.
winners. And that's another reason why this marriage with the tweener fund um, was important, because we're not involved
Mm-hmm.
in the funding
Mm-hmm.
decision. They have a model that's an index fund. And if you take the time to research it, you understand it. It's a sane, sensible model that like most of us in our 401ks,
Yeah.
strategies are
Yeah.
diversified.
Yeah.
You don't pick, specific things. You don't put too many eggs in one basket. But the important thing is it can't interfere with our raison
With
d'etre,
NC
right?
ideas,
Like our
way
reason
that
for
you do your
existence.
work. Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's just a way for us
Right.
to expand the value chain
Right.
in this thing of ours
Sure.
that benefits
Absolutely.
everybody that's
Right.
supporting it and working into it. So we should really
We're
be find a
very
way to be aligned on things. He says with a
we're
big amount of
very
jesting.
excited for you and for that advance. And inherently, it will benefit the projects that NCI is working with. They will all be seen, right,
Yeah.
by a significant early stage investment firm.
So my producer has given me the land the plane signal. So why don't we do that?
Sure.
And so I'm gonna apologize because I know it's kind of it's like when you're interviewing for a job, all these stupid interview questions you have to do. But I really do want to ask you this. What does success look like for you? I mean, you're the
Yeah.
leader of this organization.
To answer what that looks like, I think I want to circle back to something that we've touched on, but I'm not sure if the viewers will appreciate how valuable it is. We are the creation of the General Assembly, right? And that act in creating NCI's endowment is such a brave move for a state to take. Let's just be honest, to
Yeah.
set aside
Credit where it's due.
public dollars, and we are not spending those dollars, right? We are managing those dollars, but what we have is the authority to use those dollars to generate income and to use that income to do our issue our grants and do our regional ecosystem work. To even set that aside is a huge step forward for North Carolina. We have to keep that, right? I think any effort like this takes time, and it takes the accrual of success to hit the economic development types of metrics that we would want to see. Jobs
Yep.
created, businesses created, healthy businesses, clusters of technologies, new industry coming to the state,
Tax revenue,
wages. That's a 10-year play. At least, right? But let's say 10 years. I mean, I think we will see measurable success in 10 years. That's a big, bucket that I want to put a circle around because I think it's really important. And that's what success will look like for me, right? It's like building a building. You can do all of the plans and you can do the early work and you can get the site ready, but until that building is finished, it's really hard to feel that, you've been involved in the creation of something lasting and meaningful.
So don't pour the footers and then stop the building.
Yeah. Let's give it
torture
let's
metaphor.
give it a real go. Right.
Yeah, no,
Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more. And
Yeah.
having had kind of a ringside seat when that was all being debated, my very uninformed opinion, so full caveat, very uninformed, blissfully ignorant, but it was like, it was vetted. It had its day in court. A decision was made. Now
Let's do it.
let's do it.
Let's
right?
do it.
Like
Absolutely.
anything
Yeah.
less is
Yeah.
intellectually dishonest. And why wouldn't you? Why don't we? Why are we afraid to invest in ourselves?
Right.
Right? We have so much going for us that like we should be happy to, because to come full circle on the conversation, when you think about when we were talking about it, it's an asset, right?
It is an asset. Yeah.
If you are
Yeah.
not a supporter
Right.
of the NCInnovation funding model, I don't think you would go so far as to say we should stop all research at all of our universities, right? You wouldn't say that.
No, nobody's ever said that.
So
Actually, I mean, nobody
if we continue to invest in that,
right.
why
Nobody has
wouldn't we?
disproven the value proposition or even tried to. So I think we know we should be doing this. And I know there are detractors around the funding model, to be sure, but let's give it a chance and see where it goes. I think the second kind of bucket is around, okay, given that doing big things is hard, it's politically very risky. It, gets a lot of pushback in the early days. For me, real success is being able to do this work with a great team. Shout out to my team. I mean, just
Exceptional.
phenomenal people, exceptionally talented, each in very unique ways, but bringing that together to make the whole what we're becoming. For that team to be able to do their best work and to get really good outcomes in the early days, which we already are. I mean, we're already, we have ways that we measure each and every project. We are working methodically and in a replicable way. So we're going to be able to, in early days, really see how far we've come against the model and what
Right.
we expected of the model. But to do that in a way that feels like they've accomplished something. I think we've both worked on big projects where you get to the end and you know you've accomplished something, but it feels like crap because everyone is so beat up, right,
Yeah.
along the way. And I don't want that for myself. I don't want that for my team. I don't want that for our incredible board and the leadership and the hours that they put in. So being able to get through what is hard work in building a startup and come out feeling great about what we've accomplished for North Carolina, no matter how long that lasts, is really what I'd like to see.
Well, on that note, let me just conclude by saying I feel great, as does the team, the entire team at NC Idea, for the privilege to support your efforts and your incredible team. I recently had the chance to call out the early work between, two of our team
Yeah.
members, Carly and
Yeah.
Barry, you know, architecting this long
Oh
hours,
my gosh,
right?
long
Putting that all
hours.
together
Really
starting years
committed
ago.
to making it work.
And here we are. You're
Yeah.
the third
Yeah.
cohort. Was it the third cohort we recently kicked off?
Third cohort.
And, I've often said that the secret to this work, if you really want to understand successful economic development, it's not complicated. It's not rocket science. It's very smart people.
Back at you.
Thank you. Sufficiently resourced.
Yeah.
Thank you, legislature. Um, Doing the hard work, grinding it out,
Yeah.
measuring outputs, adjusting accordingly.
Adjusting.
More of,
Absolutely.
and is everything going to work? No. Spoiler alert. What in life is guaranteed?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So when critics go like, "Oh, government shouldn't be picking winners and losers, and they could lose money," get over yourself. Like, what in life
We're
is guaranteed? Nothing,
just
right?
teeing up a lot more
So
shots on goal. Yeah.
exactly. And we're smart people.
Yeah.
We'll do less of the stuff that
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
work and we'll do more of the stuff that does work, but then grinding it out, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's how you win in this world.
Yeah. That's
This
the
is how
key to
gains are made.
excellence.
And I said it at the beginning of this episode, and I'll say it now at the end. This model of NC Innovation will be replicated nationally. I have no doubt. And I say that with 20 years as an entrepreneur, having started, built, sold companies, to 20 years doing it now at the ecosystem level. Unfortunately, I'm having a very big birthday here in a couple months. That's how old I am. But
29 forever, Tom.
oh,
29
thank you. On the
forever.
20, I'd settle for 39 or even 49
49.
forever. I turned 50 in this job, and assuming I don't get fired in the next couple of months, I'll turn 60 in this job. I don't plan. Just had a board meeting, and I told my board I don't intend to turn 70 in this job, but in whatever years I have left, I hope a big part of it is supporting your efforts to be wildly successful with this. And I want to thank you
Thank you.
so much for being such a good friend, collaborator, and thought leader. I think your leadership has been inspirational for many, and you probably don't get to hear that enough. So let me say it on behalf of the ecosystem. you have a huge fan club, and you can consider me the chairman of that fan club.
I appreciate that. I think it's a mutual adoration society in the work that we're doing.
Very cool. Thank you. And so, to you, the viewers, let me just say thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this podcast as much as I enjoyed recording it. There is so much nutritional value to this discussion today. So tell your friends, share it broadly. And as always, if you have ideas for future episodes, guests, or topics, let us know. And with that, I say good day.
Stay connected with NC Idea on LinkedIn and Facebook. Subscribe to our newsletter for all the latest. Catch new episodes of Ecosysteming every other Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in and being a part of this thing of ours.